Okay, so I am probably going to get into trouble for this, but someone needs to talk about Mike Graham. Look, I have a connection to Talk TV on the basis that for the last 5 or 6 years, I have been a contributor, I've been a guest on Talk TV, various shows, and over the last 2 or 3 years, I've been lucky enough and very grateful to have been trusted with a few shows. I've done about 50 shows on my own, covering for the likes of Ian Collins, Julia Hartley-Brewer, Kevin O'Sullivan, and Alex Phillips, and so on. So I'm very lucky, very grateful, yes, that is, I guess, what qualifies me to make this video, albeit, I'll be clear, I am not an insider, and I am not party to probably any more information than anybody else is. And in fact, recently, I've been at Talk a lot less, not anything to do with Talk, not any management decision, no cancellation, nothing of that ilk, but simply because I chose to go and get elected as a Reform councillor on October the 2nd. And in the run-up to that, in what's called the Purdah period, I had to stand down to the Ofcom rules. The Ofcommunists, as Dan Wootton calls them, dictate that you cannot be, you can be on air, but the restrictions, the rules and the regulations are very tight indeed. So Talk took the view, understandably, rightfully I think, to bench me for the few weeks in the run-up to my election campaign. And obviously then I won, stealing a previously very conservative safe seat, by the way. I won, but now of course there are a separate set of Ofcom rules which dictate that as a councillor, as an elected politician, I am not permitted, for instance, to read out breaking news in case, of course, I am biased and in some way it coerces you. You, as Ofcom would perhaps think, you little people that can be manipulated by people like me just because I happen to be elected as a community representative. So the nonsense of that notwithstanding, that is why I've not been on Talk very much. However, I have been on as a guest. I was on with Jeremy Kyle recently, and in fact today, Thursday, I was asked to be presenter friend for Julia Hartley-Brewer, my good friend. I couldn't do it because simply I've got some work commitments. So anyway, look, that sets the scene in terms of me and my relationship with Talk, which is all good. No one's fallen out with anybody, and frankly, I've got a lot of people at Talk, presenters, producers, and bosses that are good friends and that I admire and respect a whole lot. However, we need to get onto the subject of Mike Graham, because over the last 4 weeks, there has been, I think it's fair to say, no pun intended, radio silence by Talk until yesterday when it was announced on Julia Hartley-Brewer's show that Mike effectively is not coming back to Talk as a consequence of this debacle over this post that appeared on his social media, which he says was placed by somebody else by way of a hack. But that effectively said the following, that he had an issue with the fact that multiculturalism had not worked, was surrounded by a sea of non-white faces in London, and so on and so on. Now, I'd like, first of all, to deal with what I think about that post, and regardless of whether it came from Mike or indeed was hacked. Bearing in mind, Mike did have his phone stolen about 2 weeks before that incident. So, you know, there is certainly some credibility to the belief that, as Mike has clearly said and maintained, that his phone was hacked. So let's think about the tweet, the post, for a second. Now, Mike clearly made a statement that a lot of people, from what I've seen on social media since, agree with. The fact that multiculturalism, which should be a mix of cultures, one would imagine, in certain places, central London included, but many other cities across the country, you've got the situation where it's anything but mixed, and insofar as there being ethnic minorities that have become the ethnic majority. And I think that is the point that Mike was making. I'm very frustrated about the fact that, you know, perhaps it can be perceived that there has been, in certain areas of this once great country, a takeover by others. That was the point he was trying to make, and I don't think that's racist at all, and I think he's entitled to make that statement and to have that view. But particularly in the context, and this is where the kind of Talk thing gets, I guess I'll get into trouble, because I don't believe that what Mike has done is incorrect in any way, particularly when you are the presenter, as Mike was, of the most successful show on that channel, The Breakfast Show, from 6 till 10, and which, as a show and a channel overall, is famous for trumpeting the fact that it is the home of free speech and common sense. Now, on that basis, I know I'm a bit of a free speech absolutist. I think that you should be able to say whatever you like. You can have whatever opinion you like. But that is obviously what has been advanced by Talk. And one of the reasons that I and many of you love Talk is because it champions free speech and opinion. And bearing in mind, Talk is not a news channel as such. It is an opinion channel. And Mike, I think, has been, along with others, Julia, Jeremy, and Kevin and so on, have been the champions of that over many, many years, and that's why we love them. So I do think there's an irony to someone having a post appear on their social media channels that talks about an opinion which also relates to something that is concerning millions of people in this country in terms of illegal immigration, for instance, as part of that debate. But that in that person's own time, they say something that later on then effectively gets them the boot from their job. Mike wasn't at work. He was not on air. This was his private thoughts, if they were his. Again, he maintains that he was hacked. I'm happy to accept that. So I think the kind of the 3 or 4 weeks of radio silence whilst Mike was investigated and the fact that this was done in his own time, I think what should have happened here is that Mike perhaps should have been urged to clarify, make an explanation as to what he'd said in that post, if indeed it was him, and to offer an apology, and then for News UK to say, look, we employ people with strong opinions. We employ people that say things that are bold and that not everybody agrees with. And Mike did that in his own time on a Sunday night, presumably, or did he? Again, go back to the hack point. But anyway, let's all move on, because not only is this a matter of someone's own opinion and someone's free speech, in deference now, it seems, to a channel that does push, advance and enthuse about common sense and free speech being at its core, there is that. But there's also now the commercial situation with Talk, which is a separate subject. So let's move away from morality and whether the post was racist or not, and whether he should have been fired for that or not. I think not. Just to be very clear, I think not. But you've now got the commercial implications of firing the most successful and most popular person on Talk TV, a man that would get tens of thousands of people watching his show on YouTube, listening on DAB, and indeed watching back and looking at social media clips and so on and so on. So in this kind of pang of, some might say, kind of woke morality on the part of News UK to get rid of someone that dares to say something that some people might think is a bit offensive and a bit odd and a bit wrong, they're now in a position where, if you look at the breakfast show since Mike was benched, the ratings have halved. If you look at Plank of the Week, a show that I am honoured to be part of, I actually was on the first ever Plank of the Week show about 6 years ago, and I continue to be on that show, or was perhaps until this video, and have been for the last 5 or 6 years. In fact, I'm booked to do next week. Let's see what happens. It just seems that the bosses at News UK, and I mean News UK, and I don't know them. I don't know Rebecca Brooks and Scott and others. I don't know, never met them. I do know the bosses on the 17th floor, Denny Morris, who I think he's a thoroughly decent guy, by the way, and I think will probably be really upset about what's going on here. However, I think the bosses have made a catastrophic mistake commercially, but also in terms of standing up for the right to free speech. So on the basis that the Plank of the Week show that I was just referencing has now seen its audience halve from 300,000 a week to about 150,000 because of Mike Graham's absence. And his show, The Breakfast Show, which it looks like now might be taken over by Jeremy, I don't know, I don't think he knows yet, actually. The commercial implications of what's happened here, I'm afraid, I think now put a big question mark, not over just the commercial viability of Talk itself, but also its very future. So this is the point, and sorry, this has been 9 minutes long. I didn't expect it to be this long, but hey, I'm an ad hoc presenter on opinion radio and TV stations, so what did you expect? But I think now, I'm afraid, it calls into question the very viability of Talk TV as a channel. So I guess the question is now, after this whole debacle, which perhaps could have been handled better, particularly when it comes to that radio silence matter, and the fact that I think Talk News UK could have said a lot more over the last 3 or 4 weeks, I worry, I'm concerned, not predicting, but I'm concerned that actually Talk TV may ultimately close as a direct or even indirect consequence of what's happened with Mike Graham over the last few weeks. One final thing before I go. Lots of people are having a go at the presenters at Talk. So having a pop at Julia and Jeremy and Kevin and Ian and Alex and so on for not saying anything. Come on, wise up, guys. When you are employed, even though your heart will be in the right place in terms of principle and morality over your colleague and his plight, you surely don't expect those people, whilst there's a legal investigation going on, to voice their opinions. The only reason I'm doing this is A, because I'm not employed by Talk, I'm a freelancer, and I don't have a contract with them, but also because I'm kind of only on air as a guest contributor here and there because I decided to become an elected politician, a representative. And as I say, there are Ofcom rules, stupidly and incorrectly in my view, that obviously dictate the where I can, what I can, in what format I can broadcast. Anyway, look, that's my view. And look, what do I know? As I say, I'm not really a big insider, but I am associated to Talk, and I love Talk, and I love the people there. So I think it's a great shame. I'm, like many others, very upset and disappointed with what's happened there with regard to Mike over the last few weeks. But of course, Mike is coming back. The Mike Graham Show on YouTube. I noticed it's almost, I think, at 10,000 subscribers in the first 24 hours of Mike announcing that. So look, I am in touch with Mike, and I have said this to him directly, but all power to him and his home of common sense elbow, so to speak, in terms of him now forging his own independent career. Good luck, Mike. And Talk, I think you made a mistake.